We stand before it, apprehending. Like everyone in the museum, we are masked. We both had circled the room once, separately, and we both had returned to this painting in the corner. Dali, soft construction with boiled beans, premonition of civil war. The painting was first exhibited in England 6 months before the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War, under the title Soft Construction with Boiled Apricots, a translating error. The parenthetical premonition of civil war was added by Dali after the war had begun. Monstrous pieces of humanity held together by desperation and violence, cruelly demanding a breast, fundament rotten, pocked ankle bone to represent what? Maybe our ferocious remaining, already becoming our remains. Or maybe, who was that mythical figure who could overcome anything so long as he had one foot on terra firma? Antaeus. Hercules defeated him by lifting him up from the earth and crushing him. Zubaran's painting of that struggle feels like an ancestor to Dali's. To lift something off the ground in order to destroy it, to break the contact between footsole and earth. There's one footsole here that is propped on a horizontal limb. It's skeletal, but the angle at which it attaches to the limb above it makes it seem full of force. Below it, on the right side, there's another footsole on what seems like a severed foot that helps hold up the whole soft construction, the body, as it were. It touches the ground, but it seems already defeated, dead. The ankle and the ground below it are stained with blood. What a contrast between the contorted, anguished meat of the figure and the beauty of the sky, its colors, its clouds. It's a sky from landscape painting. Constable. Or maybe Van Roystal. It's the sky in contrast to life on Earth. Earth's struggles, pains, sorrows, as in William Stafford's poem, The Little Girl by the Fence at School. Grass that was moving found all shades of brown, moved them along, flowed autumn away, galloping southward where summer had gone. And that was the morning someone's heart stopped, and all became still. A girl said, "Forever?" And the grass, "Yes, forever." While the sky, the sky, the sky, the sky. The struggle taking place is ugly, though, through and through. A kind of cacophony set against the lush soundtrack of the sky. Is it that nature goes on being beautiful, whether or not suffering upstages it? That humankind, deformed, violently at odds with itself, is missing the whole point, which is beauty, which is potential, the sky's the limit. Or maybe it's an even sadder truth, that ugliness and conflict is exciting and intense, while the sky, beautiful as it is less important, being always there. But oh, it is a body in hell, trying to tear itself limb from monstrous limb because it is gangrenous and can't stand the pain. And that clenched breast, the most painful spot in the painting, squeezed so it swells like an infection, a pustule about to burst. Heaven and earth. That decaying hand, a grotesque image echoing, mocking. Adam's hand, stretching toward God's. Samuel Bach, Boston-based Holocaust survivor, called this Creation of War III. Clearly allegorical, those smokestacks and God a hollow space and a forearm hanging on a string like an artificial limb. An unattached limb. We see them in Dali, too. Such images appall. Something about the body not being whole, the proportions off. If we try to arrange the body in Dali's figure, there are 2 hands on the left, 2 feet on the right, and so the head should be between the 2 hands on the left, not atop the whole figure, tilted back in an accelerated grimace. Dali's figure, or Dali's 2 figures, one on top, one below. The top one, in extremis, is a woman, and the grimace, the straining, the tense neck, the angle of the one leg might suggest she's struggling to give birth. But to what? She's as grotesque, or nearly so, as the violently grasping, seemingly male figure below her. Which lays claim to that dissevered tongue, slung over, let's make it a hip bone. Give birth, but to what? What rough beast indeed? Maybe it's in the box. Is it Pandora's? Suddenly, the thought of nuclear weapons. Suddenly, the atom. We want to stay away from that box. But should we? Perhaps if it's Pandora's box, what's in it is hope. Bachelard, in The Poetics of Space, remarks that a closed box is always more full than an open box. Ah, narrative, humanity's companion, our need to make stories. It seems that Dali's borrowing from 16th century allegorists like Vittorio Carpaccio or Hieronymus Bosch. Like them, he crams a lot of compositional elements into a painting without elaborating on the story it tells. The paintings do promise a story, though sometimes we're left to puzzle and conjecture, as we've been doing here. Here's Carpaccio's preparation of Christ's tomb. How much narrative can a painting hold? In this Carpaccio, there's a lot. The title gives us the lens to see the story, and we can read many of the details in relation to narrative time. The men sliding the grave door tell us where Christ will be going, and, of course, remind us that the door will be opened again. We project the women's lamentations reaching into the future, and the ruins that fill the background speak to a time past. Of course, Carpaccio's narrative fills itself in because its outlines are already known. And here we have a kind of counter narrative, or even a chilling absence of narrative, in Hans Holbein's The Younger's The Body of Christ in the Tomb. It's said that Dostoevsky turned a sickly white before this painting, and that his wife had to summon a museum guard to help her steer him away from it. She was afraid he was about to have an epileptic seizure. A man could lose his faith before this painting, he said. But Dali's narrative isn't so clear. There's no specific mythical or historical story behind this. It may be a dream, a nightmare, emerging from history, or, yes, a premonition. There's a makeshift, precarious balance to the image. All is askew and propped up. Despite the grand, monolithic pretensions of the figure, there are echoes of the ramshackle houses of the poor, where the wrong wind can bring collapse. If there's a narrative here, it might be that someone in the past has made this thing, created this situation, not with precision or care or concern that it endure, but as the simple act of shoring up, of keeping it, whatever it is, standing. Despite premonition in the title, the painting might be more about what we have so haphazardly made than about the collapse to come, more about the desperate will to survive than our imminent demise. The quotation feels like a succinct description of the ars poetica of the Surrealists. In the wake of World War I, the Dadaists were demolition, the Surrealists construction. They were trying to draw a new cognitive map, or at least not copy the one that had proven itself morally and spiritually bankrupt, that had produced a botched civilization. Even without the Civil War in Spain and the Armageddon of World War II that followed, this new vision of civilization would have taken several generations. By now, it may be out of reach. And so we are still here in the confusion, with this painting representing perhaps the attempt to emerge from gory dismemberment, to pull away from the claims of the dead and putrefied toward that blue, heroic sky. Who ushered in the first half of the 20th century, the shift in consciousness, more than that little guy whom Dali identified as Freud, trudging alone through this landscape? Sigmund Freud, looking both more real and monochrome than the rest of this world. He either doesn't notice this huge drama of rage and violence in cruelty, or he is jaded. Some lines from Denis Levertov come to mind. The poisoning, called getting used to it, has taken place. We only notice Freud after a bit of looking, but he now seems central to it, maybe a key to unlock that box. Once you see him, he looms. Freud's presence reminds us that the word psyche equals soul, and so civilization and its discontents has here been amplified to unbearable anguish and is about to fly apart in the massively violent decade that followed, a period that still defines the modern psychic condition. Kenneth Rexroth once observed that Western civilization died in 1945. We live in a corpse, he wrote, which jerks like a dead frog on a hot wire. So, Freud is conscripted here to act as a kind of Greek chorus to the unbearable, to the tragic, to the insoluble problem at the heart of history. Or he's an anti-hero, a Beckett character, his monologue full of sighs, maybe only sighs. And yet, Freud's position can't be the last word. Would anyone's response to confronting this painting in the Philadelphia Museum of Art be a sigh? It wasn't ours. Or hope? Nah, to clean up this stinking mess, Freud won't be getting his hands dirty. And if there's a narrative unfolding here, it's hard to see a happy ending. We're left with that box, which, for hope's sake, must remain forever closed.